and welcome to another edition of Prescott Talks. I'm your host, David McNabb, and we have a special guest on today that I want to introduce you to, and that is Michelle Hamer. She's running for the governing board of Prescott Unified School District. And Michelle, welcome to Prescott Talks.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate you having me here.
All right. I'm so glad you could join us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you come from? When did you come to Prescott? And why did you come here?
Well, the reason why we came here, we were living in England. My husband had a special project, and our kids said they were going to start having kids. So they live in Phoenix, and I'm not really too happy with the Phoenix summers, but I love Prescott. And so we decided to come and live in Prescott 16 years ago. Mm-hmm. And our granddaughter is going to turn 15 tomorrow.
Oh, right. Do you have all the grandkids here in Prescott?
No, we have another one in Denver, a 5-year-old.
Okay.
So
you got to travel to see them sometimes then?
Yes, I do. But it was great. I was able to come back and help raise the granddaughter while Mom and Dad worked. And I also, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So I was here to be able to help her and be part of her caregiving.
Okay. And what's your background or interest in education?
Well, my background's more in business management. And once I left the corporate world, when I moved to England, I started my own businesses because my husband, we went from Phoenix to Chicago, to Massachusetts, to England. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to start running my own business and make life just a little bit more simple. And I can do that at home. So that's what I did. And it also allowed me to take care of my granddaughter, my mother, but also volunteer. So I was a volunteer at Prescott Unified School District for about 4 years before they shut down the school and went online. For COVID. Mm-hmm. And so then I went on the attendance excellence team, and I would get a list of children's names that were not showing up online. And I would call the parents or grandparents or caregiver and say, I'm just here to help. Are you having a problem getting online? Can we send somebody over? And what I heard from the parents was not what I was expecting. They were angry, frustrated, and I wasn't quite aware how much care the children do get from the school as far as speech therapies and food and things like that. So I was talking to a group of other concerned citizens, and we all decided to get together and find out how we can help some of these frustrated parents, because, of course, at the time there was so many viral videos of frustrated parents as well. So about 26 of us got together, and we started meeting regularly, and we found that the best way to help parents is to teach them about their rights under Arizona law. Because once you look at the Arizona Parent Bill of Rights, Title 15, our healthcare freedom of choice, those laws are being trampled on throughout COVID for not only our schools, but also our citizens. So I built a website, and we made flyers, and the website had all the different laws protecting parents' rights and what they could do if they had a situation where they would like to make changes in what was happening in the schools. A bunch of us went out as the parents were lining up to pick up their children from school. We'd hand them, the flyer, do you know your rights under Arizona law? And we had some really good responses to that. And we had some parents utilize those resources to help get their children out of objectionable classes. So under Title 15, a parent, if they see that the child is learning something that doesn't fit with their beliefs or what they want to be taught, they can take that child out of that class and not have that instruction. Where I found that problematic is because some of the things that I saw should be taken out of the classroom, not the kid taken out. So we would do some negotiations and come up with maybe like an 8th grader in a social studies class where there was political bias against, America as a whole and Republicans completely. Yeah. And we said, what if she takes a Hillsdale Constitution course? Will you put in writing that those credits will go to high school? And they agreed. So that's when it was kind of an aha moment for me. And I decided to run for the board. That's the rest is history. And I'm also running as a slate with Andy Nelson and Linda Kahn because they are also co-founders of the Arizona School Board Watchdog. So we've worked for 18 months. We're very like-minded on what we want to accomplish at the schools.
Okay, good. And what other kinds of things were you seeing at the schools that you were red flags for you?
Well, one of the red flags is when I was volunteering at the PUSD with for many years, the fourth graders reading and writing. I'd get to the school, I'd set up my table in the hallway, very large hallways at Via Judd, and the kids, when they'd come in from class, they were supposed to come and sit down and do this course. Well, with social emotional learning, when they come in from class, they've got to line up in the hall and wait to have a personal greeting from the teacher, rather than going directly into class, opening the books, getting ready to learn. And then once they're in the class, they've got to be talking about their something goods. So when you go around and have about 30 kids talking about this, it would be 15 to 20 minutes before I would get any kids out to my table to learn reading and writing, which I think that's what they're supposed to be there for.
Right.
But more recently with the social emotional learning, and the school got over $8 million on the COVID reliefs, and a lot of that was used to hire 6 new social emotional learning counselors. But I'm not supposed to say that anymore because they've changed that to student wellness. So, yeah. So now it's student wellness because I guess this social emotional learning has got a bad ring to it, let's say.
Yes, more people have caught on to what that means.
Yes, they do. Well, I was just, I'm no longer volunteering there. I'm volunteering over at Trinity Christian, but I did talk to a PUSD counselor a couple of days ago. And she was a bit uncomfortable because they invited her to come into 2 different sessions with high school girls, one from 9 to 10 and one from 10 to 11. And one group came in from 9 to 10 and sat around in a big table circle with a bunch of goodies and popcorn and things like that. And the social emotional learning supervisor or counselor tried to get them to talk about their feelings. And there was the other volunteer and another, so it was 2 volunteers, and they're complete strangers to these girls. And they're going to open up and, talk about their feelings.
Now, what was this at the high school?
This was on the high school level, yes.
And they were pulled out of class for this?
Pulled out of class.
So they're skipping actual learning time to do this.
Yep.
And what was the purpose of that?
Well, they put students in a certain pyramid kind of category, and the ones that they feel are in this higher category of needs, they bring them in, and it's supposed to help them deal with their feelings. But as a grandmother and a mother, I can tell you that kids don't always tell you exactly what's going on. In fact, a lot of times they'll tell you things opposite just to get their way or possibly get out of class. Right. I don't want to say they're master manipulators, but they can be. I know my granddaughter was really good at it. So she was uncomfortable, this volunteer, because some girls use pronouns and some didn't. But the 2 mentors, the volunteers were considered mentors in this classroom, could not say one word. They just had to sit there and listen to these girls kind of being cajoled into talking about their feelings. And it was more in victimhood, about their poor standards. And, to me, if they are in this category where their lifestyle is such that they may need counseling, I think what they need more is a great education and to be taught they're not victims, they're strong women, and they can do whatever they want with hard work and a great education. But this is the direction the school is going right now with the high social emotional learning, diversity, inclusion. The pronoun stuff drives me nuts because it's not even good grammar.
It's stupid.
And one of the other laws that Arizona has is an adult cannot ask a child about their sexual preference. I mean, you couldn't even do it in your office here, talk to somebody about your sexual preference without getting hit with a sexual harassment. But yet they think it can be done freely at the school, and it can't. It's against the law. They cannot be talking an adult can't talk to a minor about their sexual preference. It's against the law, and it's bad judgment.
And that's going on in these kind of sessions that you're mentioning?
Well, it's more cajoling them to talk about how they're feeling. But they do ask who wants to use what pronouns.
Okay. And you said they recently hired 6 counselors to do these kinds of things with the students. And, I read the paper, and the paper keeps saying that Joe Howard keeps saying, hey, we don't have any money. We need a lot more money. But they have enough money to hire these counselors to do non-educational activities with the students?
That was from the ESSER funds. That's the COVID relief funds. So they filled out a safe return to school plan that said that they would do masking, social distancing, quarantining. Did you know it's illegal to quarantine a person without due process and representation paid for by the state in the state of Arizona?
No.
Yep, 36,789. So they put a safe return to school plan, sent it to the federal government so they could get part of that $200 billion pot of money. And in it, they have to do all of the things they say and spend it the way they say they're going to spend it. And 1.5 whole pages of that safe return to school plan was social emotional learning, not only for the students, but for the staff as well.
Okay, so that was a grant fund that was applied for by federal government.
Yeah, who's going to pay for it when that money runs out?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering here. And when will it run out, do you know?
It's supposed to run out in 2024. There is a clause that 20% needs to be spent on lost learning. I'd sure like to know where that's going. But on the board, what I would be looking at is there is a clause that you can revise that plan of how you spend the money under public comment. So if we get on the board and the 3 of us, along working with Carl Woods, can look at what's been spent, get public comment on what we'd like to change in the money to, then we can send a new plan to the federal government and say public comment says we spend it this way.
Oh, okay. So you can actually transfer that to other purposes.
Yes, if they say okay.
Yes, if it's approved.
If it's approved.
By Papa Bear.
Yeah.
Okay, really good. Now, you bring up some interesting stuff here that's happening. Is there anything else that you want to bring up that you noticed yourself, you observed, or you heard firsthand?
Well, that and the social emotional learning is my biggest concern because I think it's not appropriate. It doesn't work. Ever since they brought it into the schools, the proficiency rates have gone down. They've lost 2,000 students since 2010. They've closed down 3 schools, but yet Joe Howard now has to have 2 assistant superintendents. I don't understand that. So I think the money might not be the problem. I believe it's how it's spent, and that's one of the things that I'm going to be looking for. With a lot of help. That budget's a magical mystery tour.
Have you seen any evidence of the critical race theory being taught in schools?
Well, this is a tough one for me to answer, and I'll tell you why. Is because when I've been at different forums and I have said, no, I have not seen it, and they've on social media call me weak. And I'm not weak, it's just that I'm being honest. And there has not been one parent that has taken social emotional learning to the board. And the one of my fellow candidates that has this one document that he says has made the school rampant with CRT. If you read the lesson, it's an associate professor that his research for the last 10 years found a couple of these cases of racism bias, and it's putting some of these stories in. And then it goes on to teach the kids how to manage this racial bias and how to block racial bias. So I do not put that as critical race theory. Critical race theory is when you tell a student that they're an oppressor because of the color of their skin, or they're oppressed because of the color of the skin, and that America is systemically racist.
Right.
Now, so where the other candidate and I disagree, he's calling it critical race theory. I have to call it objectionable classes, or classwork, because it's yes, he's teaching what racial bias is. Yes, the class says how to block it and manage it. Yes, it's bad, and that's what they're trying to get the point across in this class that's posted on his website. But it's not critical race theory, but it is giving the idea, if you're somebody who's lived a long time like me, I don't see, the America as a racist country. Right. But if an impressionable child reads this research from an associate professor, he will begin to think it's a racist country because of all of these things. So it's a slippery slope. And if you're going to accuse a teacher of teaching critical race theory, well, they're, 1, lose their teaching credentials, 2, lose their job and be fined $5,000, you better have a better lawyer if that's going to be your only evidence. So we're just going to disagree on that. So I'm not weak. I don't like critical race theory. I will stop it, but I will be just as strong as stopping critical race theory being taught as I will be strong protecting a teacher who is falsely acclaimed of it. Okay, real good. That's I'm glad you said all that. That's very important to know. And what else? Is there anything that we need to still cover that's on your platform for what you're running on? Do I have a couple more minutes time? Yep. Good. Okay. One of the other reasons why Andy Nelson and Linda Kahn and I are running on a slate is because we've been going through training for the last year with the Arizona Coalition of School Board Members. That's a school board association. The only association that's been in Arizona is the Arizona School Board Association, ASBA. And what they do is they look at Arizona law and then they write the policy for the school so the school can follow the law using that policy. But ASBA has always written it with a very left-leaning progressive lens. So Pam Kirby, the executive director of Arizona GOP, and Katie Ward, Kelly Ward's daughter, founded the Arizona Coalition of School Board Members. And what they've done is taken all of Arizona laws, especially the new ones that just went into effect on September 24th, and wrote school policy for with a very constitutional conservative lens. And as members, we wanted what we could do almost in the first month of the school, change over PUSD's policy from ASBA to the Arizona School Board Coalition. Now, when we put that policy in place, the superintendent has to follow it. The schools have to follow it. Okay. And I know they'll fight us on that. Okay. But that's going to be our platform to get in more of a constitutional conservative policy written. And the good news is as a member for a 5-member board, the cost is only $125. Oh. So, okay. I mean, it's not a big expenditure. Yeah. And they also, if something happens to a teacher or student that policy affects, Arizona School Board Coalition's legal team will be there to help us through that. So not only do we get the policies that are legal with Arizona law, that are conservative, we'll also get legal support for what we do put in and how we apply those policies. All right. Well, that's great. Tell folks how they can learn more about you and contact you. You can, my website is vote-michelle.com, and that's Michelle with 1 L. And since I'm also the chairman of the Arizona School Board Watchdogs, please go to azschoolboardwatchdog.com, and you can see what the work that I've been doing for the last 18 months to help parents understand their rights under Arizona law. And this has been your host, David McNabb, with guest Michelle Hamer, running for the Prescott Unified School Board Governing Board on this issue of Prescott Talks on Prescott E! News. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.